Good morning. My name is Henry Chidgey, and welcome to my Wednesday Morning Memo. I am passionate and committed to impacting the quality and numbers of leaders on our planet. These weekly free leadership educational videos and now free blogs are part of my expression of that commitment. I am so happy you have chosen to spend a little time with me now. I'm here today for one reason and one reason only. That's to help you build your business and develop your team to create outstanding results. And the way I'd like to be measured, and I intend to measure myself about whether I got that job done today, because as you know from my previous talk, I really believe metrics are important. If you get at least one idea out of what I have to share of my story today, I would encourage you to take it out in the world and use it tomorrow morning. Start to use it. Don't just put it away as a good idea to use someday. Take it out and try it out. Use the tool if, of course, you see value in it. But if you see there's value in it, go use it now. Don't wait. Go put it in the world. Even if you do it just in a little way, use it. Play with it. And I'd love to hear, if you in fact do that you let me know you did, so I know I got my job done today. So, in my last class, which was called Accuracy of Metrics and Courage, I told you about a time in my past where I was responsible for 2,500 railway diesel electric locomotives, 80,000 freight cars, and over 4,000 people who maintained both the freight cars and the locomotives. So we were responsible for the maintenance, the repair, the servicing of all of that equipment. And so I came to this company, as I mentioned in my previous class, at a time when that locomotive fleet was in terrible shape. It was the worst by far in North America in terms of all the measurements, whether how many of the locomotives were available for service on any one moment, and then of course in the area of reliability in terms of how frequently they failed. And so I began to touch on that with you in the last class. And now what I want to talk about is, I left towards the end of that, I said something about I became an undercover boss. And so let me say more about that. I mentioned in that previous class that I had been given 90 days to either significantly move the needle on locomotive availability, especially, and reliability as well, in 90 days, or I was fired. And so I was confident that I could move the needle significantly. And I could take this locomotive fleet to a place that had never been done before. I was a lot less confident I could pull that off in 90 days. And I had this feeling, this sense, that there was something out there that none of us in the leadership were aware of that was a great opportunity to make this happen quickly. And so, what do you do when you have something that falls in the arena of life where it's in that part of life where I'm suspicious I don't know it, I don't even know if it's there. And so the only place I know to go look for stuff like that is go out into the unknown. Go into the areas that I don't have firsthand knowledge of, that everything that comes to me from that arena is filtered. Not with ill intentions, just as human beings, we tend to filter data when we pass it along. And so what I decided is I needed to get on the shop floor in such a way that when I was on the shop floor, I was not the senior vice president and chief mechanical officer of this multi-billion-dollar business, that I was just another worker. And so I came up with the idea that I had 9 facilities spread out across the western half of the United States that did this kind of work. I decided that I would go to work on the midnight shift that usually starts at 11 p.m. every night in each one of these facilities as a craftsman and look like I was just a new hire coming on, that they didn't have all the paperwork handled yet. And the supervisor would put me to work, and I picked a craft that I knew enough where I could do the work. And I just came in and give them give them my first name, but a false last name, and went to work and learned what I could do, learned what I saw. Fast forward a little bit, so now I'm in the shops, I'm going to work. The supervisor assigns me the task, and let me say a little more about these supervisors. We have in the railroad business, in that company, and most companies in the railroad business, you have management, which is called exempt employees, and then you have union leadership, which is called first line supervisors, that are also in a union, and then you have your crafts, which they're all in unions. And so you have this split between union employees and exempt employees, or those that are not represented by a union. And this group of supervisors falls in the union category. They have a union agreement, they're protected by their union from abuses. And so over time, and I was watching these supervisors give instructions. They had given me instructions and others, and they were doing fine. I mean, they tell us precisely what to do. They would point out, in case especially like new employee like I was representing myself to be, they would make sure I had my steel-toed boots on, my other personal protective gear, my hard hat. It was the right color, it was orange. And they were doing the things I would expect out of a first-line supervisor to do, and they would make sure I had my tools, the parts, I knew what locomotive I was supposed to work on. All of that was working like I had expected it would work. But what I started to notice is that that's pretty much where it ended in terms of how that first-line supervisor felt his responsibility and accountability went. It's like he wasn't really responsible for the results. He was responsible for the delegation of the work to be done, to make sure the people had the proper protective gear, and that they had tools and parts to do their job. But other than that, how much they got done, what they got accomplished, he didn't have a responsibility for that. That was that upper management guys that had that. And so you had this real disconnect, because these first line supervisors, every one of them was selected. They had to say, I want to be a first line supervisor. They were selected through a process to determine they had basic leadership skills and the basic desire to do what leaders do. But over time, they hadn't been treated with respect. They hadn't been held accountable for that whole leadership thing because they were quote unquote union. And it could have even been jealousy, because their working conditions were probably better than the next level of management above them, what we call general foreman, because they had a union that said if you work extra time, you get paid overtime. An exempt person, they can work as many hours as they can work and they don't make any extra money. Things like that can create tension and difficult conversations and even an appearance of lack of respect. And so when I got back after visiting all these 9 shops, saw the same thing happening in all of them. I was so excited that I've got these 400 leaders or thereabouts out in our organization that right now are not being fully utilized. And I know they want to be utilized. They may not at this moment in time, because they've been, for a lot of reasons, they've kind of become resigned. Their job now is just to survive through the chaos of what's going on in the organization. And so I came back, worked with my team about how we could take this simple but not easy to do cure and put it into the organization quickly. I asked for a meeting with the general chairman of the supervisors organization, had a heart-to-heart talk with him, in which I shared very much like I'm sharing with you about how important I know these people are to the railroad. I mean, I worked with them when I first went to work in the railroad. I did some of the functions they did. And I just felt like, given the opportunity, almost all of them would jump on the opportunity to take on additional responsibilities and accountabilities as long as they could trust us, as long as they felt like we had their back. And I was committed to do that. So, I guess it's that old saying that if you want to move the world, you find a fulcrum and a big enough lever, and you can do anything. And I think that first line supervisor in that situation at that railroad was what transformed it. We went from being, in a year, the worst performing locomotive fleet in North America to in the top 10%. Not the top, but the thing I'm very proud of is that fleet performed with accurate metrics better than it had ever performed in the 100+ year history of that company. And it was through great people, great supervisors, great leaders that we pulled that off. And I am extremely proud of that. So take this out in the world. Make me proud. Go take an idea that you've got out of this talk, out of my story, and put it to work in your organization. See if it doesn't make a difference for you. And I'd love for you to give me some feedback about whether I got my job done or not. Did you find an idea in this talk that you found worthwhile enough to go try in your business with your team? So, of course, if you'd like to work with me, just give me a call. I can work with lots of people to help them through these kind of challenges. You get more personal one-on-one support. And if not that, if you got a question, just email me. I'll respond to it, I promise. So everybody take care. Have fun with this in the world. And I'll see you soon with the next part of this story of this 2-year period of my life. Bye-bye.